Subjectivity, agency, and discourse. These are some key concepts that you have to learn before we look into the social construction of reality. You're familiar with the term subjectivity. Subjectivity signifies a person's perception of the world. Subjectivity signifies a person's perception of the world, your understanding of the world. That is, it refers to that aspect of an individual psyche by means of which he identifies himself and his place in the world. It includes his outlook, emotions, values, beliefs, and perceptions. So, subjectivity signifies a person's understanding, his perception of the world. Next one is agency. Agency in language. By the term agency, we mean the power center or that which influences people and events. The power center or that which influences people and events. In every culture, there are agents or institutions which frames rules and traditions and make the people to follow it. They always show a domineering behavior over the people. Such empowered agents give meaning to all enterprises in which members of a society are engaged. It is this power centers that decides the right and wrong in respective cultures. So agency means the power center or such institutions which influences people and the related events. Next one is discourse. Discourse means the context in which any speech or writing takes place. The context in which any speech or writing takes place. For example, the discourse of a classroom assumes that the teacher is wiser and more capable than the students, with an unwritten rule established that a teacher's word are not to be violated. Social construction of reality. Peter Berger and Luckman, in their work The Social Construction of Reality, introduced the term social construction into the social sciences. The central concept of the work is that persons or groups interacting in a society notices everyone's behavior and form concepts or mental representations of each other's actions. When a person performs a particular activity for the first time, or when he behaves in a novel way, others will notice his way of action or behavior. If his action or behavior is beneficial, then others will try to learn it. After learning it, they will try to perform it or behave in the same way when they also face that similar context encountered by the first person. Whenever there is a similar situation, they will behave in that similar fashion. Thus, this repeated use of the same behavior will slowly becomes one of the collective habits of that society. Habits through repeated use develop a code of conduct. This process whereby everyday repeated actions or practices or behaviors become a code of conduct in a society is called habitualization. Habitualization. When these habits become an essential part of the social system with fixed meanings, it becomes a rule. And this process of habits becoming norms or rules is called institutionalization. Institutionalization of social processes grows out of habitualization. The process of validating the habit as a social norm is called legitimization. Symbolic universes are created to provide legitimacy to all the institutionalized norms. Symbolic universes are a set of beliefs that aim at making the institutionalized structure believable for the individual. It provides explanation for why we do things the way we do, or it helps to create and maintain our reality. Language plays an important role in the analysis of integration of everyday reality. It is through language that habits and social norms becomes our objective reality, and it is also through language that social norms are passed from one generation to the other. Language in relation to class, caste, race, and gender. Language is linked to our identity. Language names us, classifies us, gives us specific roles, and thus establishes identities for us. First, let's learn the relationship between language and class. Language and class. The language of the working classes is different from that of the upper classes. The experience of hard work in rough conditions shapes working class language. They use a lot of swear words, slang, and crude expressions. The lack of formal education is one of the reasons for such language use. In fact, they generally use language minimally, since they are used to action rather than speech. Apart from this, their language captures their cultural ethos. T.H. Lawrence has used the dialect of the working class to effectively present the ambience and convey the reality of his working class characters. The upper educated class use language in a more refined manner, as is their culture. Language and caste. Caste-specific terms and names which language bestows on people are markers of identity. It fixes the identity of a person. Language use varies according to caste and the culture which is peculiar to it. Caste names are used as expressions of abuse. Social injustice is thus inscribed in language. Caste names were linked to the work undertaken by particular communities. Even though in modern times people may not be engaged in their caste professions, the stigma associated with it is still the cause of the insulting street treatment given to them. Ambedkar and Kanja Ilaya have argued for English as a more neutral language, where traditional caste names are irrelevant. Forms of address in English do not use caste terms and so becomes a leveler of social differences. Language and gender. Gender relations are encoded in linguistic and symbolic representations, normative concepts, social practices, institutions, and social identities. The use of the masculine pronoun in the generic sense is one of the ways in which the superiority of the masculine gender over the feminine gender is established. Language renders women invisible by the generic use of the masculine pronouns he, him, and his to refer to both men and women. Manpower, mankind, man-made are also generic expressions signifying human beings in general, which show male domination. In 1975, Robin Lakoff identified a women's register, which we argue served to maintain women's inferior role in society. She affirms that women tend to use linguistic forms that reflect and reinforce a subordinate role. These include tag questions and question intonation. It is said that men and women differ in their use of questions in conversations. For men, a question is usually a genuine request for information, whereas with women, it can often be a rhetorical means of engaging the other's conversational contribution or of acquiring attention from others. Similarly, female linguistic behavior characteristically shows a desire to take turns in conversation with others. Language and age. Language is a tradition which is carried down from generation to the next so that all members of coexisting generations can communicate. But as it is carried down, it undergoes change as each generation renews the language of its predecessors. When we compare present day English with the English used during Renaissance period, that change is very evident. Likewise, each age group uses different styles of the same language. The language used by old people is very different from the one used by adolescents. Language used by the old people is often neglected because it is considered a part of aging. People of other age groups generally adopt a modified style while talking to the aged while failing to give them attention as individuals. Bilingualism or multilingualism. Bilingualism or multilingualism is the phenomenon in which a person can understand and speak two or more languages. We know what is meant by bilingualism or multilingualism. We are multilingual. Most of us can speak and write in Malayalam, English, and Hindi. In your textbook, there is an example given of indigenous Indians living on the border between Brazil and Colombia. They live in a group called phratries. Each phratry comprises 5 tribes. Each of the tribe uses a different language. Except for the language difference, their other customs and practices are similar. Thus, each phratry forms a language group. But at the same time, people of the tribe are multilingual because a man must marry outside his language group. Several languages are used in each village. The language of the men who belong to the tribe, several languages used by women who have come from other tribes, and also a wide variety of trade language. Children are born into this multilingual environment and are exposed to many languages. People from this locality are interested in learning other languages, and in the course of their conversation, they shift from one to another. This process of shifting from one language code or linguistic code or language to another, depending on the social context or conversational setting, is called code switching. The process of shifting from one linguistic code into another is called code switching. Sauris is a village on northern part of Italy. There the people speak one language at home and another among themselves in the village, and the third while speaking to the outsiders or in a more formal setting. Most often people are seen to switch codes. In fact, a single language can serve their purpose of communication, but they find it wrong. They believe that each language has a social role to fulfill. In this type of code switching, it is the situation that decides the language. There is another type of code switching called metaphorical code switching. Metaphorical code switching is the tendency to switch codes or languages in conversation in order to discuss a topic that would normally fall into another conversational domain. In such cases, the tone and choice of language determines the situation. Next one is code mixing. Sometimes a fluent bilingual is seen to switch from one code to another without any change in the situation. This kind of change is called code mixing. It is the mixing of 2 or more languages in speech. A speaker does this to get the right kind of effect. An example is, we often hear Malayalam orators using Sanskrit words or phrases to create an impact on the listeners. Multilingualism, social and political problems. Multilingualism poses many social and political problems in numerous countries of the world. We know in places where 2 or more languages are spoken, one always holds a more prestigious role. Bolivia is an example. It is a multilingual society where 36 ethnic groups speaking different languages reside. The ruling elite who speak Spanish neglect the language of the native people. Till the revision of the constitution in 1994, Bolivia had not been recognized as a multilingual society. Another example is Quebec, a city in Canada. The French ruled the province of Quebec for long. French is widely spoken in Quebec even now, but it is considered inferior to the French spoken by the elite in France. There is another language situation known as diglossia. Diglossia is the coexistence of two varieties of the same language throughout a speech community. It is the coexistence of two varieties of the same language throughout a speech community. Often, one form is the literary or prestige dialect, and the other is a common dialect spoken by most of the population. Such situation exists in many communities throughout the world. Example, in Greece, in the Arab world, where classical Arab used in Quran exists alongside the colloquial Arabic of Egypt, Morocco, and other countries. In German-speaking Switzerland, the two varieties used in Swiss German are called Hochdeutsch, which is the high language, and Schweizerdeutsch, which is the lower language.